185 drones, 36 cruise missiles, 110 ballistic missiles. In total, throughout the night of 13th of April 2024, 331 devices struck Israel from Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen. The attack, dubbed Operation True Promise by Iranian forces, began with the launching of a large wave of Shahed 136 drones, the same ones used by Russia against Ukraine, in an attempt to collapse Israeli defenses before the missiles arrived. VisualPolitik community, we are talking about the biggest attack that another sovereign country has launched on Israel in the last 50 years. It is a direct, clear, and forceful response to the attack that Israel carried out against the Iranian consulate in Damascus on the 1st of April, aimed to disrupt the operations of the Revolutionary Guard in that country. In that attack, Israel killed 7 people, including Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahedi. This guy was not just any guy, but one of the top managers of the Revolutionary Guard, the very commander-in-chief of the Quds force in Syria and Lebanon, and responsible for liaising between the regime of the Ayatollahs and Hezbollah, Iran's extensive paramilitary arm that operates beyond its borders. So he was a major player. Iran promised revenge, and now that revenge has materialized with a massive attack against Israel, an attack that now comes with a new warning.
Iran will hit U.S. bases if Washington helps Israel launch a retaliatory attack.
Naturally, this generates a few questions. What are the consequences of this attack? What exactly might Israel's response be to the current situation? Could it really have been, as has been suggested in some media outlets, an attack somehow agreed on between the Iranian government and the Hebrew government? Well, this attack has caught us by surprise in what many consider to be the capital of the world, New York. But never fear, we've been working through the night to answer all these questions. Let's get started.
On target.
Of the 331 devices launched against the Hebrew state, only a handful managed to hit Israeli territory. In fact, despite the enormous media impact of this operation, there were no fatalities, and the material damage was very limited. For example, one of the targets of the attack, the Israeli Air Force base at Nevatim in the Negev Desert, which is one of the main bases of operations for the F-35 in the country, suffered only minor damage that did not even halt operations. VisualPolitik viewers, the Israeli defense system, supported by the air forces of the United Kingdom, Jordan, France, and the United States, more than fulfilled its objective to prevent a foreign attack from causing significant damage inside Israel. It didn't come cheap though. It is estimated that it may have cost Israel more than $1 billion to protect itself from this Iranian attack. Let's just say that anti-ballistic missile equipment doesn't exactly come cheap. But of course, the cost was not really the issue. However, it is likely that this lack of effectiveness was exactly what Tehran was hoping for in order to avoid an automatic escalation in the conflict leading to an open warfare. In fact, the areas of impact chosen by the Ayatollah's regime were mainly the Golan Heights and the airbase in the Negev Desert mentioned previously. In other words, Iran somehow avoided the most populated areas, industrial zones, or particularly sensitive installations. But wait a minute, if they didn't expect the attack to have a great result, what on earth was the point of launching it? Basically, there are 3 reasons. First, this attack has allowed the regime to reinforce its image at home after the incessant trickle of senior commanders who have been killed by Israel or the United States in recent years. Indeed, the occasion was used as an opportunity for hundreds of regime supporters to take to the streets to celebrate the attack, especially in Tehran's Palestine Square. Fireworks were even set off. Secondly, the attack served to check Israel's defenses and to test in live fire action the behavior of the Iranian missiles. And thirdly, this operation has put fear into the hearts of all Israelis. Remember that the Israeli anti-aircraft defense system had to shoot down Iranian missiles over the Knesset itself, the Israeli parliament located in Jerusalem. In other words, this has been something of a warning mission. You could say that the Iranians have sent a message to Israel. Be very careful. If you try to attack our nuclear program, we will respond with force. Not with 100 ballistic missiles like this time, but perhaps with 1,000, 2,000, or even 3,000. And of course, there would be no dome to stop that. And don't forget that with Iran's nuclear program well advanced, a concerted attack between the United States and Israel has been strongly discussed in recent months. In other words, Iranian officials have used their response to the Israeli attack on the Damascus consulate to send a message loud and clear. But friends, there's a lot more to this. Stay tuned.
Demonstration.
Let's not kid ourselves. The Iranian attack has caught virtually no one by surprise. Following the attack on the consulate in Damascus, an Iranian response was expected. It was something they had warned about. In fact, in the days leading up to the attack, the rumors were constant. Of course, this time in Jerusalem, the Hebrew government knew what was coming. This is, in fact, what Netanyahu himself was saying before the attack took place.
מערכות ההגנה שלנו פרוסות. אנחנו ערוכים לכל תרחיש, הן בהגנה והן בהתקפה. מדינת ישראל חזקה, צה"ל חזק, הציבור. מי שפוגע בנו, אנחנו פוגעים בו. אנחנו נגן על עצמנו מול כל איום, ונעשה זאת בקור רוח ובנחישות.
In fact, there is speculation that the Ayatollah's regime itself may have given Israel some advance warning that this would be its response. And take note, because this is something that Israel neither denies nor confirms, which of course usually means there's some truth in it.
The Israeli government to Al Arabiya, we neither confirm nor deny that Iran informed us of the nature and timing of its response.
Well, don't think that this was something so extraordinary. Yes, it is true that this is Iran's first attack against Israel, but it is not the first time that something like this has happened. In fact, this attack is very reminiscent of the ones that Iran has carried out on one occasion or another against US bases in Iraq. For example, there was one after the US killed General Soleimani, the head of the Revolutionary Guard, in Baghdad in a precision strike.
Iran responds to Soleimani's assassination with missile strike on 2 US military bases in Iraq.
Well, the fact is that, in this one, the attack was bigger, but the damage was just as small. Israel has mainly used 2 military systems to bring down a large part of the Iranian attack. Of course, we are talking, on the one hand, about the very famous Iron Dome, and on the other hand, about the Arrow 3 system, which is the highest level of the Hebrew state's multi-layer anti-aircraft defense system. The Arrow 3 is a system developed with the United States, whose function is precisely to intercept ballistic missiles. Now, the defense this time has worked, but if the attack were much larger, then it might not be enough. This is the caveat I was telling you about earlier, and one of the reasons why the Israeli response may be much more moderate. It is true that Israel is developing a system known as Iron Beam, which uses laser systems to shoot down projectiles. However, it is not clear how far its capabilities go at this point in time. But now that we know how and why the attack took place, we have yet to delve into perhaps the most important part of all, Israel's possible response. Well, let's not wait, let's get straight into it.
The response.
Iran attacks Israel, and it stands to reason that we all expect a furious response, someone to put their foot down, as already happened following the Hamas attacks on the 7th of October. In fact, this is the direction in which the religious Zionist members of Benjamin Netanyahu's government are pointing. Look at this.
Impressive defense so far, now there must be a crushing attack.
Now, is this really going to be the case? Well, obviously, we don't know, but it is very likely that things will be different this time, starting with Washington's position.
Scoop. Biden told Bibi US won't support an Israeli counterattack on Iran. Biden seeks to head off escalation after Israel's successful defense.
But if Israel is attacked, isn't the US supposed to respond? Does the Biden administration no longer support Israel? Well, nothing could be further from the truth. The point is that this attack was expected, was probably, let's call it, half-planned, and has had no consequences. In fact, this time, Israel's defenses got straight A's. And so, as it has been leaked, this is exactly what Biden told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
You have a victory. Take the victory.
The problem is that an Israeli response could trigger a whole war in the Middle East, and that would be very bad for the economy, for anti-terrorism policy, for Ukraine, and, in general, for the whole world. Obviously, Iran is not Hamas, nor is it Hezbollah. As we have told you in several videos here on VisualPolitik, Iran has focused heavily on deterrence in recent decades. Among other things, it has developed a huge arsenal of missiles, drones, and air defenses. It has also built speedboats and some small submarines. The aim is that if the country is attacked, it can respond by attacking Israel, the oil fields of the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, and it could block the Strait of Hormuz. This in itself would be an economic catastrophe, and so in Tehran, they consider it a good life insurance policy. At most, Iran would simply respond to Israel in a much more intense way, which could result in many civilian casualties and a great deal of damage. Then the Israel Defense Forces would have to respond to that action, and that could create a terrible spiral of violence presence in the whole region. That is precisely why Washington does not even want to hear or talk about this possibility, and certainly not in an election year, and as long as the war in Ukraine continues. But it is also not clear that the position of the military high command in Israel and of a large part of the political arc is very different. And let's see, a war with Iran would not only be with Iran, it would automatically also be a war with Hezbollah. That is to say, we would potentially be talking about a large-scale conflict with all that this entails: casualties, destruction, eternal mobilizations, serious economic damage, etc., etc., etc. But does this mean that the Iranian attack will go unpunished? Well, no, that would not be advisable either. Think about it. The message that would be sent to the world would be terrible. What would happen, for example, if Kim Jong-un were to do the same to South Korea? If we have learned anything from the Russian occupation of Crimea in 2014 and the international inaction, it is that precedent has enormous influence. That is why 3 different responses are now likely to occur. On the one hand, Israel is likely to intensify its attacks against the Iranian arm in Lebanon and Syria by means of attacking both Hezbollah and the Revolutionary Guard's own Quds Force units operating in these countries. In fact, this is exactly what the Israeli Air Force did immediately after the Iranian attack.
The Israeli military said its warplane struck a significant Hezbollah weapons manufacturing site in Nabi Cheat, a village deep inside Lebanon.
Then, after that, US international sanctions against Iran are almost certain to increase. And thirdly, don't doubt it for a moment, the plans between Israel and the United States to eventually terminate or curb the Iranian nuclear program will pick up speed. However, wait a minute, because all this is obviously nothing more than speculation. Israel might also want to take advantage of this moment, the excuse to attack Iran, erode its military capabilities, and even put the brakes on its nuclear plan once and for all is up for discussion. It's unlikely, in fact, that the Hebrew state will ever have an opportunity like this again. So the question is, what could happen if Israel finally decides to take advantage of this opportunity? Well, as stated by the Israeli press itself, this would be quite a reasonable option. First, several groups of Israeli F-35 aircraft could swoop down on Iran in an attempt to destroy its air defenses. Some groups could fly along the Syrian-Turkish border and then penetrate Iran via Iraq. These countries would, of course, object, but Israel could act unilaterally. Then other groups could advance through Saudi airspace. The idea would be to attack in waves until Iranian anti-aircraft defenses were dismantled. Ballistic missiles and drones could also be used. Once this objective was completed, groups of F-15, F-16, and F-35 fighters would seek to attack the final targets: nuclear program facilities, or the most advanced missile and military equipment factories. Of course, the operation would be high risk, and there could be numerous casualties in the Israeli Air Force, but it would be a possibility. Of course, that would be a huge headache for Washington. The Americans would probably end up to their necks in it. In any case, at this point in time, this scenario seems unlikely. But of course, if we have learned anything in recent years, it is precisely that we cannot take anything for granted. Well, that's how things stand. In this video, we have seen what the attack was like, why it happened, and what the most likely consequences are. Now, the question is for all of you. If you were Israel, what exactly would you do? Leave us your thoughts in the comments and let's start a debate. And now, if you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to VisualPolitik if you have not already done so. All the best. See you soon.